the sequences for the making of Pet Sounds and later Good Vibrations and Smile were all really important. I mean, for me, I kind of grew up on just those occasional glimpses into, the making of an album or something like Let It Be or Sympathy for the Devil that were, kind of those rare glimpses. And I really wanted to kind of capture that real spontaneous, authentic look at it. So we ended up shooting it all like a documentary and had real musicians and all there, and Paul kind of, channeling Brian and really doing the whole thing. When it came down to the Good Vibrations, and I don't know if you're talking about the 360 pan, but that's actually something that was a little nod to Godard with the Sympathy for the Devil. But, it worked there to kind of really communicate, again, Brian's precision, and really wanting to get it right. He had these, amazing melodies and harmonies and arrangements in his head, and getting it out, in exactly the right way was super important.
Brian, what has the experience been like to watch this movie and watch you recreating your music? And
well, it's broken up into many different segments and sections. The first one that I liked the most was when I met Melinda and bought a car from her at her dealership, Cadillac dealership. And then I went to a place called where I was producing records. And Paul Dano did a great job portraying me as a record producer. It was a lot of fun. It was a labor of love, and I still continue to watch the movie. I've seen it 5 times, and I probably see it 5 more times. It's really a great movie.
But I think I read a quote of yours where you said that your time with Dr. Landy was even worse in real life than it was in the film.
Actually, it was worse in the film than in real life. The guy that played Dr. Landy, Paul Giamatti, was so letter perfect that I thought that was the real Dr. Landy. It was like, it was so factual and so well done that I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the beauties of playing Brian and that, Brian is a part of the project was just the wealth of resources that I had. So, I've never had more fun researching, a part than Brian. And as much as I read or looked at or whatever I did to try to sort of chase his spirit around and just get a little piece of it, without question, it was not just listening to the music and the Pet Sound sessions and the Smile sessions that they've released, which are one of the great documentations of an artist at work that anyone can hear. But I think learning to play and sing the songs is what probably brought me closest to Brian's spirit. And I think in some way by playing and singing, you are putting Brian inside of you, and so everything seemed to circle back to the music for me. No matter what I tried, it all came back to the music.
Was there a particular song, a eureka moment, where you were listening to something or singing something where it fell into place?
I think it was the beauty of the beginning of the song "You Still Believe in Me." The second, I think it's the second track off Pet Sounds, and he sings these sort of falsettos coming down, and something about that, because it's not words, it's the voice, it's something about, it's the spirit. We could talk about the instrumentation, the chord changes, there's so much going on in Brian's music, but he is the part that we can't, that is ineffable, and I think I really feel that in his voice.
Did you and John talk about how were you going to play these characters, or do you want to go off and create the character at that time in your own mind?
No, we met as I was finishing and John was starting, and I think we both really trusted in Bill, but Bill really trusted in us to say, I think if you guys just go after your respective Brian spirits, that it's going to work out, and I think it does. For me, the juxtaposition of a young man truly alive and vital in the studio making Pet Sounds to somebody older who's clearly been through something, and watching the film, we don't know what yet. There's something in between those two people that I think is really interesting, and I think having the two actors helps us just to get a percentage of a Brian who's such a beautiful and complicated human being.
when my the guy I worked with, Brian Laux, first called me up about it and said, "We're doing, they're making this film about Brian Wilson. Would you like to be involved doing the score?" I said, "Absolutely no way." How can you possibly compete? Or not compete, but you're going to play one of, I can think of any number of songs, and then it slip into a bit of score, and it's just going to sound lame, in my opinion. And also, I wasn't like a massive fan of the music bio genre. It was once I'd read the script and I understood what the film was. And then I still felt like it would be a big challenge. But having read it, I thought if Brian was ever present, maybe that would be a way that the music could work. So I met with Bill and we had breakfast, and I told him this idea. I said, do you think Brian might give, because there's certain mythology about all this music that was recorded and never released, and about a month later these hard drives arrived at my house with everything.
Brian kept everything, right?
It was incredibly generous, and I hopefully did my best to do a respectful job.
Yeah, I mean, we had access to an amazing amount of research and resources. I mean, Brian and the Beach Boys' life had been so well documented. And we had a jumping off point with the studios over there on Sunset, which is now East West, which is where the Pet Sounds track was originally put together. Had this great, warm, earthy tones. So we sort of started with that, and it just seemed like a natural sort of way to go with that period. And we sort of tried to embrace that and juxtapose that in the 80s, where we definitely went with a cooler palette, more whites and black and grays, mirrored surfaces. Things are a little glossier, and but even with those two different eras, we tried to. It was a concept that Bill brought up from I think our first meeting, and it's reflected in the line that Elizabeth has about the color blue being this calm tone, and we tried to sort of weave the whole movie together with those tones. And if you notice that there's, whether it's the blue sky or the pool or the reflections of the pool in the house and in wardrobe, that it was sort of a through line that felt sort of natural to tie together.
Danny, it feels like in the 60s you're very authentic, not so much later on. Why is that?
Well, yeah, the 60s part was, we were really working from the research and kind of using it like a jigsaw puzzle to recreate everything almost exactly as it was, because it's so beautifully documented. And, the 80s portion, it was more about getting into the kind of the psychological space of Melinda and how she's seeing the world, and how Melinda is meeting Brian, and so it was a lot of fun to sort of contrast this really kind of beautiful, poppy, dreamy California authentic element in the 60s, and then in the 80s I kind of was sort of trying to evoke those sort of like cool noirs of the 80s, California noirs, where everything black would turn white. Mm-hmm. And I kind of really love the idea of white being a color that was incredibly angelic and safe, as we see, but also incredibly cruel and deceptive, the way that Landy manifests itself in white. And it kind of, part of me wanted to subconsciously suggest that he escaped from a mental institution, and you sort of, but it was really fun to sort of play with the balance of authentic, which both parts were, but then the 80s portion was definitely leaning into sort of a more visceral, emotional authenticity.
I was very seduced by this script and by the ambition of the two actors and the two time periods and stringing it all together. But Melinda, she was a little mystery to me until I really met her, and she's so fierce and so devoted to Brian. And Melinda said to me, look, I wanted to understand how you fall in love with someone with as many challenges as Brian had in the moment that they met. And Melinda said, everybody's got baggage. And that's true. And it's just about your commitment to overcoming and seeing the soul of the other person. And they are winning at life. If you go to Brian's home, it's a big, beautiful house, 5 kids, tons of dogs, tons of laughter, love beyond. It's just they're living a beautiful life. He has completely come out of this on the other side. And I think that's the message to take away. We don't quite, we don't tell that in the movie. You have to infer it. And I'm telling you, they won. They did it. You just meet her and she's a force to be reckoned with.
And I think in some ways, and Bill, this is probably the design of the film, that she's a force to be reckoned with, but Landy really underestimates what she's capable of.
Yeah, and that's what happened in real life, to my knowledge. There was quite a struggle. There was actually a bigger struggle than we could even capture in the movie. It was really, you could do a film just about that one part of the story, really. I mean, she was very strong and really, I don't know, Brian could probably answer better, where he would be without her, but it would really...
Let's ask, Brian, where would you be without Melinda?
Without her, God only knows. I wrote a song about her. I wrote it before I met her, and now it's about her. Yeah.